Hey, John. The internet is working. That's magic. And we've got a wonderful image tonight. People are excited to hear about tiger flu or whatever it is you're going to tell us. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's a very exciting show. So I thought it was time to address this mysterious disappearance of influenza. It seems that a lot of people in the Twitter world, I don't know, somehow got word of the fact that influenza disappeared. And a lot of them have tried to explain it. I think we saw like Viva Fry sitting on a log. We saw Martin Neal sitting down with a foot doctor trying to explain it.
Oh,
Right, Doc Malik, right,
podiatrist.
the
Right.
podiatrist, right, foot doctor.
Uh-oh.
So everybody's trying
Okay.
to figure out. You got Jordan. What happened? What
I
happened?
thought you froze.
What happened?
No, we're good.
Oh no. So then you've you've got Jordan Schachtel, right? And he writes an article, and then Zero Hedge picks that up. So again, a lot of people have been looking at this disappearance of influenza, and for the longest time, I thought I had this understood. I thought I knew what was going on, and I was wrong. And it's a weird feeling to have these beliefs for so long, for 3.5 years or whatever, and to think something's happening, and then to see new evidence that you hadn't taken into consideration before.
Uh-huh.
And that new evidence is what takes us to the thumbnail. And that new evidence
Uh-oh. You
is
just
the
froze.
evidence from
Sorry.
what?
The new evidence you were saying.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the new evidence is from former President Donald Trump. And so we had a chance to look at this last week with our patrons. So for those of you who only really get to watch us on YouTube, we spend like an hour, hour and 15, hour and 20 with our patrons when we go over to Patreon and Subscribe Star for me. So you guys want to support my work, you go to patreon.com. What is it? I am John Cullen. You go to subscribestar.com. I am John Cullen. If you want to support Jason, it's like Walmart. You can go to a million places. You go to where tell everybody where to find your work if they want to
Well,
support you.
odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth is the most economical way. People can also go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth.
So
So what do we
that
have in this
audience,
thumbnail, John? You got to tell us.
well,
People
well,
don't
all
understand
right. So,
this.
well, and I want people to understand. So the people who are here on YouTube, our patrons have the benefit of getting to spend a bunch of time where we go through all this stuff in detail. And so a lot of the stuff that we've covered with the patrons, the YouTube
Oh,
audience
makes
has no
sense.
idea.
Right.
Yeah, has no idea what the hell's going on. So it's important for the YouTube audience to understand that our patrons, the people who support our work and get to go spend an hour or whatever it is, hour 15 with us when we go to that second part of the show, they're kind of a week or two ahead of you guys. All right. So I'm just saying, right? So the stuff we're going to share now is sort of stuff that we went over last week and the week before with the patrons, but it's important because it explains how this disappearance of influenza all came together, and that takes us back to the thumbnail with Donald Trump. So it was Donald Trump and a video that some I don't know, some cynical bastard, I don't know what you would say, but somebody makes this video and says, "Oh, he's such a dummy. Look at what he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and he's talking about this, but it's
Oh, with
really that."
1917 versus
Right,
1918.
right. And I sent you that video, and the video that I sent you is not the full video. So they've got a full 4 minute long compendium of him doing this. I sent you a short clip, right? I sent you a second WeTransfer, and I said I forgot to send you a video. So I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that or no? That
Isn't this
second
it?
one?
Can you see the
Yeah,
screen
yeah,
share?
yeah. That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So can we play 30, 40 seconds of this for this audience just so they understand this premise, okay?
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything like this in 100 and some odd years. 1917.
You read about
1917. But in 1917, certainly not since 1917. There's been nothing like this since 1917. Who would have thought? 1917. It was the Spanish.
So this was the video. So you, like you're saying, you played this a couple weeks ago on the Patreon show, and this is what led me to finding Anton Dilger somehow. I don't even remember how.
That's right. Well, we're going to walk through that. So now let's go to the slides and let me explain to everybody how Donald Trump helped me figure out, with Amy's help, how did influenza disappear? And it kind of goes back to a discussion that I had in 2021 with Ivor Cummins from Ireland. And I was walking him through all these WHO reports that you and I had been looking at and going, how the hell did influenza just disappear from Sweden and Norway and Hungary and Switzerland to Japan? And it was like, how the hell did this happen? So I'm sharing it with him. And after we get to a certain number of them, and he sees Hungary, right? Hungary's cut off. He says, this has to be subterfuge. And I just love that word. And I'm like, well, this explains it in one word, right? It's just one word explains the whole disaster.
Not kosher.
And so it really stuck with me. It really stuck with me. It's like the point being, if I can show people enough evidence, it becomes obvious this couldn't be organic. And yet it was. Now, there's a little room for some monkey business in just one or two countries, but for the most part, I'm going to share with the audience here on YouTube an organic explanation for the global disappearance of influenza. Now, this is something that
wait.
This is
wait. Because these organic explanations, it's kind of nonsense unless it's also free range. Okay.
Exact. Well, these are free range, organic explanation. Thank you for pointing that out. That's why we charge a little bit more. Right?
Not even one corn finished.
No. We don't do that. We don't play that game, right? So the interesting thing is that no one else, like the Viva Fry and Jordan Schachtel, Dr. Ely David or David Ely, whatever his name is, nobody's really offered a cogent explanation for this phenomenon. Right. And yet, you just heard Donald Trump going on and on about the 1917 Spanish flu. And the person who made the video is making it to point out what a dumb, orange-headed guy he is. He doesn't even know when the Spanish flu was. Yeah. It was 1918, you dumbass, right? And look, and he's making the same mistake over and over and over again.
It's Dumas.
About 40 or 50 times.
Yeah.
To the point where every time he's in front of the microphone, he's saying it.
You're right.
So none of his handlers are saying, Mr. President, it's 1918.
I'm sure he's incorrigible.
Sir, it's 1918, sir. Sir, with all due respect, sir, it's 1908. Nobody said that to him? Nobody said that, ever. Nobody ever said, sir, with all due respect, sir, I think it's a 1918 Spanish, right? He's trying to send a message. Now, the question is, who is he trying to send the message to? Because it's a very subtle difference between the 1918 Spanish flu and 1917 Spanish flu.
But you know what, though? The subtlety is almost, it's ironically subtle. Like, he's making you're right. He's making a point of it.
He's making a point of it over. If he did it once or twice,
it's a mistake.
And then he shifted to 1918. Right. If he said it March 11th and March 13th and March 15th, and then he shifted.
Started saying 19, right.
Yeah. It'd be like, okay, so nobody said anything to him for 2 weeks, right? That's not what happened here, right? This is 40 or 50 times. We got 4 minutes of this compilation.
That's like Ada Hutchinson. I know his name is Asa, but I call him Ada. Every time he tells you that, you're right. He always is deliberate like that. Why does he call him Ada?
So why? All right, so now we look at the deck, and here what you see is this is Zero Hedge. This is Zero Hedge picks up Jordan Schachtel's.
Right.
That doesn't even realize that it disappeared in 100 countries, doesn't know what happened at the same time, like doesn't understand the facts, let alone why it happened, right? So this is why I say you can't figure out how something happened until you understand what happened. Mm-hmm. And I got the what happened part wrong. So now the question is, as he's yelling 1917 Spanish flu, 1917 Spanish flu, 1917 Spanish flu. You think he was talking to Jon Stewart? Who do you think he's talking to that's talking about 1918 Spanish flu?
You think he's watching?
And sending emails to Laura Ingraham saying it's Spanish flu, it's Spanish flu, it's 1918 Spanish flu. And he's going on microphone going, it's 1917 Spanish, 1917 Spanish flu. And I'm saying to Laura Ingraham, in every email, three times a day, 6 times a day, she's sending me emails from the set at 11:02 p.m. Eastern. I'm getting emails from her.
Wow.
Like they just shut the lights off. She's sending me emails from Fauci. She's forwarding me Fauci's. Yeah. So she's saying to me, well, what do you think it is? 1918 Spanish flu. What other virus would Fauci need to hide?
So
what other virus
Laura
infects
Ingraham
people
was
this
telling
way?
You? Hang on, or you were telling her? You were telling her.
I'm telling her. I'm telling her it's 1918.
Right,
and
because at
she's
that
playing
time,
the dumb
let's just lay it out for people. Because at that time, you had basically brought to my attention, I never saw it before you told us about it, the whole Breivik mission plan to dig up the indigenous woman and scrape her lung tissue and genetically recreate the thing. Didn't know about that until you told us, and we just figured that got out of the lab. So now what is it that you're saying is happening?
Well, and the funny thing is, we shared that with Dr. Judy.
She liked that.
Mikovits.
Yeah.
And she didn't even know at that time when we shared it. She was like, really? Because I used to work in the building next door. Like she ate in the same cafeteria as these lunatics. And she didn't know the story. And she looks it up, and she looks up Ann Reed and Terrence Tumpy and all these guys. And she's like, oh my God, they really did this right in the building next to me. So kind of crazy story. So what Donald Trump tells us in his thing with the 1917 is kind of you're close but no cigar, right? It's not the 1918 Spanish flu, 1917. Well, what the hell is he talking about? What the hell is the 1917 Spanish flu? So you go start looking at Anton Dilger. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the This is the disappearance of influenza everywhere, right? And there was a paper. The guys wrote the paper. Australia, Chile, South Africa, United States reduced influenza. I'm like, yeah. What about Hungary, Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, Germany, France? Wait, you guys ran out of time? You ran out of money? There were 100 and something other countries where the same thing happened, right? And when on the title page, I put myself as honorary PhD because I want everybody to understand I have the same credentials as Bill Gates. Okay, so I have the same credentials, right? So he didn't graduate college, right? I didn't graduate, so we're.
But nobody
reading
reads the
Stephen.
one, right? Nobody even checks that.
Right, but I'm telling you, after this, I think I'm going to get a teaching position at Stanford. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So influenza disappears from well over 100 countries pretty much at the same time. And at first I'm thinking it's subterfuge, right? Somebody paid off Dr. Tedros, something, right? I mean, come on. How the hell do you pull this off, right? This is impossible. This is like every major country. Influenza pretty much falls apart. And I have to tip my hat to the guys at YouTube. Recently, YouTube has gotten a whole lot more reasonable about video content that kind of challenges the narrative and debunks conspiracy theories, right? So that's what we're doing here. So we're debunking a conspiracy theory that this is some big cover up, and the WEF and Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates called Tedros, gave him $5 million. No, that's not what happened. This is natural, organic, and free range. And we're going to talk about how did this come together. So we're watching Warraby. Warraby's talking about Breivik mission, H1N1. They dig up the chick, they bring the shears, they cut out the lung tissue. And he goes on about this for about an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah. And in the final 5 minutes of the presentation, he starts talking about this other thing. Go to the next slide. Yeah, go to the next slide. He talks about this other thing. So go one more slide, and I think we should be. And then this is 1917 Spanish flu.
Yo, I got the bacon.
Whoa, Yahtzee. And so I dropped that 1918 Spanish flu like a bad habit, like a hot potato. It's yesterday's news. 1918 is off. 1917 is in.
March.
Right? And I'm like, oh my God, we've got it. This is it. Anton Dilger, 1917, guys screwing around. Problem is, this is H1N1. Now, why is that a problem? Because 1917 H1N1 wasn't really like, is that even a thing?
What do you
Like,
mean?
is there such a thing as, well, we've got this sample, but is this like a thing? Is this like a problem anywhere? Well, let's take a look. So let's go to the next slide. I'll show you why this becomes a problem. So I'm trying to figure all this out. Right here, you got the influenza, and poof, right? Like David Copperfield can't do an illusion this good on Epstein Island,
Right.
in the nude, right? You can't make stuff disappear
In the grotto.
this effectively naked on Epstein Island, right? So
Hide
we
the
know David
salami
Copperfield
doesn't even work that well.
doesn't work this effectively. This is remarkable. All right. So go to the next slide, if you would. And so we see this phenomenon in
But
country
then why
after
is it
country.
back?
Well, so we'll talk about that too. The same phenomenon. Okay. So,
Okay.
but there's an explanation, right? So let's keep going. Keep going. One more slide. We see it in country after country, multiple countries, same thing. For almost 2 years, influenza disappears. But why is that slide from Warby from 1917 not the golden ticket? Thought it was, but it was fool's gold. And the reason is there was another virus that they found in the patients in Wuhan. And the other virus that they found in the patients in Wuhan, besides SARS-CoV-2, so they found SARS-CoV-2, but next to the SARS-CoV-2, they found influenza. And the weird thing is that the influenza that they found is this really weird strain. And that's on the next page. And so there's a bunch of scientist people that know what all this stuff is and what it means and whatever. And they're the ones that, do the real work here. And so they've documented the blood test results from the first 40-something patients in Wuhan. And what we found last week, if you look at the yellow and green and you zoom in a little bit up on the top of that slide with the yellow and the green, what it tells us is that, can you go all the way up to the tippy top where there's a legend right above that edge? There you go. So it says H7 and 9 are in green and SARS-CoV-2 is in yellow. So you see this co-infection. You see SARS-CoV-2 and you see H7 and 9. I was like, well, that's weird. H7 and 9? Wasn't there an H7N9 outbreak in Asia back in didn't I tell you a story about I got sick in 2016 with H7N9 and I was sick for 10 days
Hong
and
Kong
I thought
flu,
I
you
could
told me.
No. I said I had H7N9
Oh, well, I
in
don't remember the number.
2016.
Hey, but wait a minute. I got to pause you a second because it's time to make our way over to the sponsor exclusive segment on subscribestar.com.
Oh, no. Let me give me 10 seconds so that people understand what happened here.
Okay.
The next slide, I think will explain it. All right. So that is
now it's
H7.
clear.
That is exactly. So that is your that is H7N9. Okay.
Looks bad.
That's H7. It doesn't look like other things, does it? It doesn't look like coronavirus. And if you go to the next slide, this kind of sums up, how did this happen? Well, this particular virus that we found in the patients in Wuhan, you can skip that and go ahead one more. Keep going. One more. Keep going. We'll come back to these for the patrons, but I want the YouTube audience to understand what the hell happened. Keep going till you get, there you go. That's it. The chart. Okay. So we see this virus in the patients in Wuhan, and we know from the Chinese that there was an outbreak of this that actually started all the way back in 2013, but in 2016 it got bad. And this was H7N9. And the thing about H7N9 that's kind of weird is it's an avian influenza. It comes from a bird. And when we track back what Trump might have been talking about, it seems that there was a sample taken from a goose in 1917 that is not related to H1N1. And this particular strain that we found doesn't need trypsin, just like H1N1, meaning it can infect your heart, it can infect your brain, it can cross the blood-brain barrier, it can infect your colon, it can infect your testicles, your blood, and your circulatory system. It has a 40% case fatality rate.
That's nuts.
Yes. So now when that virus becomes the dominant virus, the dominant influenza strain, what happens to PDM09? What happens to H3N2? What happens to Yamagata?
So now wait a minute.
This
is this because
monster shows
all
up.
influenzas make you sick in the same way, so this one overpowers it or something?
They compete. So people talk about one virus pushes out the other. They compete against each other in their own family. Like dogs compete with dogs and wolves compete with wolves, right? Dogs don't compete with hyenas. So here, influenza H7N9 pushes out all the other strains. And if you look at the legend on the right-hand side, there is no H7N9.
They're not even checking for it, so there's nothing.
It appears as if there's nothing there because it's not something they track.
Wow.
And in fact, the new test for highly pathogenic H7N9 comes out 2 days from when we're recording this. We're recording this, I think, on the 12th of January, and I think it comes out on the 14th or 15th. So you can go to the CDC and order the highly pathogenic H7N9 test kit 2 days from now, meaning it hasn't been in any test. It's not in BioFire, ePlex, Panther, meaning you're never going to find it. And yet, it appears like it disappeared. But we know it's the number one comorbidity of COVID. So apparently, it didn't disappear. It's just the WHO doesn't track it. They didn't assign a color to it. Had they, it would appear. You'd see it. But there's no test for it. They don't track it. It hasn't been prevalent until the outbreak in China. That really didn't get legs until about 2016, 2017. So that appears to be what happened. I'm not saying it's definitively what happened. If somebody has better evidence, I'm open to see it. But that appears to be what happened. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I mean, listen, it's an explanation. I haven't heard any of these other guys' explanations other just than COVID knocked it out. But I think with that, John, we will carry on in the sponsor exclusive segment here so people can join us on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be right back.